On this week's Cow-Calf Corner, we have a very special guest. Dr. Rick Rasby from the University of Nebraska is here, and he will receive a Graduate of Distinction Award from the Department of Animal Science. But we would like to visit with him today a little bit about what's going on in the cow-calf industry in his state of Nebraska. And Rick, I think a lot of our producers understand that as we've gone through the drought in this part of the United States, that a lot of cows have left this part of the country, perhaps have been culled. Some of them have even moved north. And so would you give us a little idea of what's going on in Nebraska in terms of the cow herd in general?
Well, I think you're right, Glenn, is that some of those cows were relocated from the south up to Nebraska. In fact, our numbers tell us that. We went from like 1.7 some million head of beef cows up to about 1.8 and change. And so I would say probably the majority of those have been cattle that have been relocated from down south up to the north.
Do you think that you're seeing movement then back to the south with the rains that we've been getting this spring?
You know, that's an excellent question. The reason is that my understanding is that most of the cattle that came from Texas that were relocated up there is that they were actually looking for year-long leases. And so I think some of those cattle will move back. But I think some of those may stay for as long as a year.
In general then, the cow herds in Nebraska, do you think that they're expanding in relationship to, say, the prices that we're seeing, or contracting?
Boy, that's a million-dollar question. It seems to me that it's been difficult to expand the cow herd, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. And one of those reasons is that, you know, calves sell for a pretty good price right now, and so even heifer calves. And so the idea of probably healing up some old wounds and getting some debt paid off, I see a lot of that in Nebraska. We're actually trying to start to expand and save back a few more heifers this year. If you look at numbers, Nebraska has retained a few more heifers as compared to years previous. But here's the deal is, as I take a look at it, is that we haven't got a lot of moisture in Nebraska right now. There's a lot of interest for grass, but most producers aren't giving up grass quite yet until they kind of figure out the moisture situation. In
Nebraska, do you see any change in terms of when cows are being calved out? Calving seasons changing as time goes forward?
Man, you think about it, Glenn, 650 corn has you know, when we had $1.80, $2 corn, we covered up a lot of mistakes, I think, in managing grass, if you will, because you had a cheap energy source to get some condition back on cows or to get calves to grow a little bit different. You know, those kind of things have really changed, but I think we're moving more back to the roots of the ruminant, and we're probably going to include more and more forages in there. If that's the case, we're going to go to, you know, probably later calving. I would say a lot of our cows calve in March. We may go to an April, May kind of a thing.
And then those calves will be sold when? In November, December?
Yeah, you know, if they're sold right off the cow in November, probably it'd be about the time period that we do that. We see some of those calves sell directly off the cow. Some of those will be backgrounded for a short period of time, typically maybe 2 to 3 months, if you will. I think we'll see more and more calves go to corn stalks. It's a little bit different than here. You guys go to wheat pasture, but we'll probably look at maybe some different supplementation regimes on corn stalks, because you still got to stage cattle into the feedlot, and then the feedlot's got to stage cattle into the packing plants. And so that's still got to happen, you know, and so I think that's the way we're going to try to do it.
Rick mentioned the corn crop and how important it is in Nebraska. Certainly the use of biofuels and the byproducts from those biofuels are an important part of the cattle feeding and cattle supplementation industry. On next week Cow-Calf Corner, we're going to visit again with Rick and learn a little more about how Nebraskans use some of these byproduct feeds in their cow industry. So we look forward to visiting with you again next week on Sunup's Cow-Calf Corner.